Hello, 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 beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Career Gems for the Journey podcast. We are excited that you've made the time to join us. So, whether you are on a walk or whether you are on a ride, a drive, on your way to work, coming home from work, or just in the background taking care of business and using this podcast to get you through, we're excited that you're here with us. And I wanted to make sure that before we jump into our amazing guests, I remind you all that our AI workshop, our AI integration workshop is available now. Head over to gemsforthejourney.org, sign up for our mailing list, and you will get all of the direct information for when the course is going to be offered, the times of day, registration information. We're really excited about what we have to offer there. And I know many of you have been waiting patiently, so thank you. And now we're officially here. We're in June at the time of this recording, and we have launched that course online at gemsforthejourney.org. So head over there to make sure that you get your registration information locked in with us. Now we're going to do a pivot that I'm actually really excited about. My team and I have been talking a lot. Most of the people that we get to talk to on the podcast are folks who are coming from corporate, academia, and a number of them from nonprofit. So we're excited to be able to bring a perspective of federal employees, retired federal employees, and those who have navigated that transition from federal employees to entrepreneurship or to wealth building strategies. So I'm excited to welcome Daisy Jones Brown to the podcast. Welcome, Daisy.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Amazing. So, I have a lot of people who work in federal government in my personal network, but I realized that we did not have a lot of that represented on the podcast. And sometimes we'll get questions from people to try to get a perspective of, well, that doesn't apply to me, right? In the way that the federal government might be structured, in the way that I want to grow my career. So I'm going to read your bio here just to give the listeners a little bit of perspective on what it is you do. And then we're going to jump right into a few questions. So, Daisy Jones Brown is an Air Force veteran, retired federal leader, licensed professional counselor, real estate investor, and business strategist. She helps federal women leaders and veterans translate their experience into income, ownership, and wealth through entrepreneurship and real estate investing. Through her Power Pivot framework, Daisy guides high achieving professionals in building purpose driven businesses and creating generational wealth beyond their careers. So we're going to hear firsthand what is the realness that folks may be navigating coming into or transitioning out of federal work. So, talk to us just a little bit about. We'd love to start our podcast with the backstory of 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, when you were starting your career. Did you imagine that you would arrive at this destination? Did you have any perspective that you now would be transitioning into entrepreneurship after a long federal career?
I would say at 22, I have to take myself back there where I was and what I was doing. So at that time, I was still active duty Air Force, and I wasn't thinking about anything other than maybe I'll do 20 years. Maybe I'll stay in and retire from the Air Force. And if I could retire from the Air Force, maybe I don't really have to work anymore. I didn't think very much even then that, hey, I would transition into federal government at all. And so things didn't always work out that way. I ended up leaving active duty Air Force after 8 years and gave it a go as a therapist. You know, I had just finished my master's degree and became a licensed professional counselor, and I was working in for this hospital out in Boise, Idaho, as a matter of fact, because I had interned there, and I was working in a schizophrenic unit, and
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
it was really interesting. But what I realized was the techs next to me and the therapist next to me, they were getting paid a lot more. And I wasn't used to that because I came from the Air Force. If you are E1 or E2 or E3, everybody got paid the same. And so I'll tell you what I did, and I think what a lot of federal women do, now that I have hindsight on it, is I didn't stay in corporate America, because the Air Force had already conditioned me for the safety of a federal paycheck. And so I went right back into the federal government because it felt safe.
Okay. Now you are, you're giving us a little bit of insight as to what we meant, many of us heard, right? Traditionally, going to work for government, there's stable jobs. You almost can't get fired, right? That used to be a lot of the narrative, and that was attractive to a lot of people. And it also gave a certain, especially when it comes to professionals, just clarity on what it takes to progress in your career. It felt like the steps were kind of one, two, three. Now, here we are in 2026, and the federal government looks nothing like it did maybe 20 years ago. Talk to us just a little bit about your choice to retire and the timing of your choice to retire, considering all that's happening in the federal government and restructuring in this current administration.
Absolutely. So I had plans to retire probably, you say to yourself, hey, when I get there and I'm eligible, I'm gonna retire. But for a lot of us, you still stay on longer and longer because you want that paycheck. And you're right. Like the federal government was that last kind of spark of the gold watch. Hey, I'm going to do 30, 20, 30, 40 years. I'm going to retire. I'm going to get the gold watch. I'm never going to work again. And a lot of us have ambition along the way, but we were used to that safety. And
Mm-hmm.
so we don't step out of that. And so what happened is I said, hey, in 2022, I said, hey, I'm going to start building this entrepreneurship in along with my federal job. And I actually took some training and I started the business and I started doing the coaching on the side. And really I was at that time working with women who were gonna hit that end goal and say, hey, I'm done now and maybe I want to do a little consulting on the side. I want to do a little coaching on the side. And so I was sort of doing that. It was a very slow process. I would work with them. We would do it one on one. There's some complications with compliance in the federal government to have these side hustles as well. So you have to get that approved. And so,
Oh, can you talk to us a little bit more about that? That's
yeah.
I'd love to get a better perspective on what complications or what compliance requirements um were identified, I think, as you're building the business.
Yeah, so you can't just say, "Hey, I'm gonna have a side hustle in the government." You actually have to go through your ethics office. You actually have to fill out some paperwork, and you have to have that approved. And some of the complications is you can't do what you're already doing in the federal government. So you
Okay.
have to ensure that you're not actually doing that as well. And then it depends on your job as well. I'll just say, for example, say you are working contracting and you see a company that you could work for, but you manage that contract, then you can't go work with that company and manage any contracts. And so it
Okay.
can get complicated, depends on your job. But
Mm-hmm.
the idea is that people were afraid inside the government, and still are, I'm sure, to go get that approval to do that side hustle because they thought it would affect their performance or perceive affect their performance in the job they have now, and that would affect their promotions. So you
Yeah.
can have a lot of people with a lot of talent and say, and they would go, I don't want to go through the hassle of
Mm.
getting a side hustle approved because it could affect my promotion. Does that
So
make sense?
what would have originally would have been intended as managing conflict of interest while you're inside of the government to not, and I'm laughing because conflict of interest now is almost, it seems to no one cares to be able to measure or control it now, as we're seeing lots of government restructures and contracts and very much out in the open conflict of interest. That's not you though. But I could see how the intention to manage conflict of interest could put more rigor and requirements for people to navigate, and then if you do take the step to navigate the appropriate conflict of interest management, then it's the idea that maybe you're not fully committed to your job. Maybe you
Exactly.
shouldn't get promoted and get this next experience. Maybe you shouldn't have these kind of unique opportunities given to you, which then stifles some people in their career, doesn't allow them the flexibility that they may have been able to pursue. So I could see how people would make that conscious choice not to move in that direction.
Hmm. So
So
that is the first mental hurdle, yeah, to move past.
the first mental hurdle. Okay. So
Hmm.
then um there are a lot of federal employees and women veterans that have these decades of experience and expertise, and they are navigating not only the red tape of figuring out the conflict of interest, but there's often things that you could recommend that um because having made that transition yourself, you can help them to figure that out. Give me a few examples of what that would look like for folks who have the experience and need to overcome that mental hurdle. What would be the first recommendation you would make for them?
So the first thing I would say to them is that they have to understand that they're not really starting over. They're not starting from scratch, that
Mm-hmm.
they're starting where they are. And the tools that they need, even though they may be different from what they already know, they can be learned. And so the first thing that federal women have to attend with is it goes all the way back to me saying, "Hey, I want to go back in because it's safe here."
Yeah.
Is that identity shift? And the identity from just identifying with their job title, their GS level, the bureaucracy in the government, and how you move within that, and it's really recognizing what am I beyond that. What is that thing that I'm actually really doing, that I'm actually really providing beyond that, that I really do own, that the government doesn't own, I own? What is that intellectual property that I own, that I do best?
So do you think that in their day-to-day work, maybe the messages that they're hearing from supervisors or messages that they're hearing from other employees, do you think that the idea that the government owns all of their concepts or all of their ideas is being reinforced on a consistent basis, like day to day? Because you said that it was like the first thing that they need to reframe. So that means they're working against some resistance, I would imagine.
I don't necessarily think it's that. I think it's just that when you're inside of that system that is structured that way, and so you just don't really think past it.
Okay.
That,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm doing a job and this is what I do. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And not how do I now translate that into something else outside of me. And so I think that's sort of the first thing, is that knowing that they have to do that identity shift. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Which is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Which is tough. It's a tough move to make, because what you have to do is, you can't just say, "Well, I'm going to start a business and I'm just going to put it out there and see who come." Because one, you haven't. I call it, you haven't really untranslated your brilliance. You have to translate your brilliance into what it looks like out here differently outside of the government.
I think it's interesting because for those of us who spend most of their career in corporate or in entrepreneurship, there's always this perception that there is, real differential like skill sets that are coming from a military background or from a federal background. So I actually think that leaning into that perception that most people who have never done it, right? And I think that perception comes from, I've never been able to achieve it. I'm completely ignorant to it. So leaning into the perception of, I have a unique set of skills that's going to make me more capable in certain areas than someone who is going about it in a corporate or maybe even nonprofit or academia way. So it also makes me think about, is there a capacity? Is the work so daunting or so demanding that making time to build a side hustle or to do these other pursue these other initiatives does it feel like there's actually the capacity or the time to be able to do it when you're currently still a full-time federal employee?
I think it could feel like you don't have the capacity at times. It depends on what you're doing and what job you're doing. But I also wanted to go back to what you were saying earlier is that I believe what is happening is it just feels normal to do all these things. That there are so many skills that I think military and federal employees just do on a normal day-to-day basis that they don't even realize that they are transferable.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels normal to do and hold so much.
And I
Um,
think you also just talked about, even in your own example of leaving active duty, getting, finishing a graduate degree, going and making a translation into corporate in the healthcare sector, and then also having the agility to be able to move back, into the military as it makes sense, as it was a fit for you. So I think you're explaining something that you've now nurtured, right, and grown for yourself, and that's why your business and the work that you're doing is flourishing. But I think there's lots of people who are in corporate and feeling that same pain point of, do I have the agility to be able to do something completely different, completely opposite to what I've done today? And I think the government has this mystique, right, that a lot of people are curious about, or would feel like, I can't make that transition. That wouldn't make sense, or that'll be too hard, or there's so many limiting factors. Now I'm curious, and this is a little bit off track, but and because you've navigated all the faces, the corporate side, the federal side, as well as the entrepreneurial side, what is the part of it that you feel gave you the most interest or the most enjoyment as you were navigating your career journey?
so for me, I would say it was just realizing that I had the freedom to choose. And so and just starting. You know what I mean? Like most people get stuck at the start line.
Mm-hmm.
They just won't start because they don't want to sit with being uncomfortable. And so for me, it was just starting and saying, "Oh, I can actually do that. Oh, I can actually learn how to translate that into that. Oh, that's transferable." Like there's so many things. Let's just say leadership. You're taught so much leadership in federal government and in the military. And then you get into entrepreneurship in corporate America and you go, these are the exact same skills that I'm using. You know what I'm saying? They can go from one to the next.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people get stuck and say they think they got to start over and do something new and do something different. But really, they just have to learn how to say, how do I get to know myself really well
Mm-hmm.
so I can really translate what I know how to really do, and then I can have the confidence to move between these different areas because a lot of the navigation is the same, and I hope that makes sense. Like going from different worlds to the other worlds, a lot of the navigation is actually the same.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like it's different, but it's really the same skills that you're using.
I could see that. I could see how there's a ton of overlap, transferable skills that come from developing leadership within a government role that could align in corporate. I just think there's not a lot of people who have done it successfully and that are talking about it publicly. So I think our audience it'll certainly spark their curiosity. Now, for those who are listening and thinking, well, there's been so much shakeup in the federal government. Maybe that's not even a path that many people will be able to take anymore. What made you transition out at the time that you transitioned out? And then help me understand how that really allows for you to think about your retirement as the beginning of a new chapter for you.
Right. So much happened in 2025, and the agency that I was working with, it was changing, and it was changing in a way that was not comfortable with. And I say this all the time, and some people did not get this lucky. I got this lucky. Um, I was at a position where I was right where I could take full retirement.
Okay.
I was at a position I could take full retirement. And so when the programs came out for me, it started to become a more obvious thing for me. I was like,
Okay.
I could actually take full retirement. I'm not exactly where I want to be. I'm not exactly ready. I probably would have stayed another year or two. But I could take full retirement, and I did. I took advantage of it and I took full retirement. Now, I sat with a lot of women who could not do that. Some were at crossroads where they had been in 10 years, some were at crossroads where they had been in 20 years, some were at positions that had only been in 2 years. And so I will say this. It felt crazy, the whole DRP, and that what that was you leave now, you get paid for 3 or 4 months, and then then you're done. That felt crazy, but hindsight looking back, it was a lifesaver in some ways for a lot of people, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Because it at least gave you a few months to get your bearing.
okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Um, and everybody didn't take that, but some people did. So within that time frame, not only did I have to rethink, okay, what am I gonna do, but how am I gonna approach the people that actually need my services right now? Because what they needed at that time is not me saying, hey, let's get together and do 9 months and draw out your whole little business plan and let's figure it out and let's go slow. They needed a bridge. Well, how can I make money right now? So the idea was I learned really fast. How do I help somebody translate something that they're really good at that somebody in the market is paying for it right now?
Okay. So you're basically helping people become entrepreneurs in real time, right? Where you're encouraging them to take action. So you talk a lot about helping people move from income to ownership and building wealth. What does that transformation look like? And help us understand why it's important, even for someone who's thinking about, do should is it appropriate for me to start a side hustle? Why should someone make those kinds of decisions, whether it's side hustle, in real estate, in entrepreneurship, in consulting? Why do you think that is so important? Because I have a personal philosophy, which I shared with you earlier, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yes. So I think the old pathway is over, it's gone. I worked 20, 30, 40 jobs, 40 years at a job, and I retire, I got a pension, and I can just live and do what I want to do. So I think we have to be more we have to be in charge of our legacy. And so, how does someone do it? So, when someone work with me, the first thing that we do, of course, I use what I call a power pivot framework. So, the first thing we do is we look at how do I take what I already know, take those particular skills, and how do I translate that into something um, that actually makes sense into what the market is buying. So, that's the first step. How do I do that? And I do that through a process where I use a next chapter blueprint. It's sort of they do an assessment, and then we sit down and we do a one-on-one, and I use AI plus human strategy that I use, and we come up with the best thing that they are uniquely positioned to do. So their unique value proposition. And then we look at who wants that now. Who wants that? Does federal government want it back in contracts where you could be a subcontractor? Does someone need it in the corporate America? Does someone need it in just trying to help themselves navigate through something? So how do you sell it back? And then how do you package it to sell it back? And so I think one of the best things that you can do when it comes to your helping someone with their IP is help them develop a framework around it. And so after we do that, then we launch it. We put it out there in the world and we let people know. We get the visibility around it. And so I really do think it's that simple in starting. And then as you start, you iterate. and you go along and you get better at what you're trying to do. So I say you take the longevity of how to start a business and you just start. You start by going through those steps and putting it out there. And I think it's crucial that people increase their income that way because the old system is gone. And so you have to create something for yourself. And so how my philosophy work is after you are creating income for yourself, now how do you turn that into ownership? And so I choose to turn that into ownership by investing in real estate. Some people invest in stocks and mutual funds, and some people real estate, and some people other alternative investments. And of course, you can do a combination of those things. But I think you take that income, either you've done with your side hustle, things from your 9 to 5, 401ks, TSP, whatever, and you learn how to leverage those and turn that into income. And that helps you um, turn turn your ownership into wealth that you can actually turn into some sort of legacy. So that's my philosophy is going through that entire process and iterating as you go.
So what you reinforced, and we talked about this on previous episodes of the podcast, is the idea of job security anywhere in any sector is gone, right? It's been destroyed. I think it's been deconstructed right before our eyes in a lot of scenarios. And I think about the baby boomer generation. My parents are baby boomers, and how they would have been able to say, I worked at a company for 30 years and was able to retire, and not maybe I had a pension and I had social security and I had some savings. So you can navigate a diverse portfolio and where your resources were coming from in your later years. And now I think when we think about Gen Xers, we think about millennials, and we think about those who are coming behind millennials, that paradigm has completely shifted and been disrupted. And the idea of having multiple revenue streams in addition to a day job is the new expectation. And I think what you're saying is you're giving people a bridge to figure out how to maximize whatever resources they have now, whether that's intellectual property resources or financial resources, to be able to create more revenue streams and then build wealth is thrilling. It's exciting. And I think lots of people are trying to figure out that hack, and having someone like you to walk them through it can be a really valuable expediter, right? Like maybe I would have been able to do it in 2 years by myself, but in working with you, it would take me 6 months, 3 months. Talk to me just a little bit about, because right beside that in my mind is this idea that everything is your individual responsibility. There's no systems set up to save you. There's no infrastructures. There's no safety net. And sometimes that can force people into a burnout position where they are stretched so thin in trying to show up in all of these different ways and maintain a 9 to 5, but also build these other systems beside them. Is that something that you hear directly from your clients, or is that something that your experience has shown you?
Yes, I do think it can turn into that. And that is also why I don't think people should navigate it by themselves. And so one of the best things that people can do is literally work with a coach. And I mean that in the sense of a coach of where you are, because I have made all the mistakes. So I tell my clients this: I've made all the mistakes. I was around during COVID. Um, in these different masterminds and programs and etc., that people were charging you this exuberant amount and you weren't getting really much from it, and etc. Some things you just weren't ready for
Mm.
because you just wasn't there yet. So I think you have to find a coach that's where you are, that you can resonate with, that could help you navigate through some of this stuff. Yeah, you could.
Thank you so much for calling that out, though. Thank you so much for calling out that there was a time where there was a very grifter, a very money grab perspective, that people may feel burned by, right? That they may have, in 2020, 2021, in that time during when there was so much uncertainty, there were a lot of people who were taking advantage, right, of that uncertainty. And then people started giving away money and not getting a return on that investment. So I appreciate you for acknowledging it, especially as someone who's also a business owner and a coach. I was so disappointed to see how people were moving during that time. And then it left a bad taste in the mouth of people who would otherwise be really excited or really, really well equipped to make a transition. But now they've been burnt by that. So thank you for just acknowledging that that's a real thing. And people have to overcome that perception because there was a lot of messiness that was happening during that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was a lot going on. It was a lot going on. Um, so I think they have to, you have to get a coach that you resonate with, and you have to get one that's reasonable, and you have to get one that is you're willing to help you work through wherever you are right now, and and then you can move to the next thing. So I think that's one way that people can, not be overwhelmed by what's happening. And then I say one thing at a time. I think everyone should be learning. Like, we love distraction, we love YouTube, and which is nothing wrong with YouTube, we educate, and we love Netflix, and we love a lot of the stuff. But you also have to educate yourself. So when you go in the room, that you have at least have a basis of where to start. Like, is this person really telling me something that I know or I think I know, and can I really ask good questions? My mentor, one of the things which one of my mentors is Arlen Hamilton. And one of the things when I had my
We love Arlen Hamilton like we love her. Well, obviously she's only a friend to the show in our head. We've never had her on the actual show, but in reading her work and seeing what she's building, extremely impressive. So sorry, I had to just add that in.
Oh no,
So do you know
absolutely.
her in real life? Like she's your actual mentor?
She's my actual mentor.
Oh,
Yes.
super cool.
She's my actual mentor. And I had my VIP day. And one of the things I asked Arlen, I said, you always say, ask better questions. And I said, what do you really mean by that? And she was like, Daisy, you have to be more curious in what's happening with someone else than what you can get from them.
Mm.
And I thought about that and I was like, okay, so you have to really want to know and help your clients. You really have to be invested in what it is that they need and what they want, and not necessarily what you need, because what you need and money, it will come after it. You know what I mean? So it'll
Mm-hmm.
just happen. And so I think for people to not get overwhelmed, they have to get the right guidance beside them, someone who can help them move through the system, and someone who's doing it in integrity.
And
Like you
it
said.
is absolutely appropriate for you to vet your coaches, for you to vet the people that you are taking advice from. So just to carry on from your last comment, I want to discourage people from saying, well, I'm not going to hire anybody. I'm not going to get any support. I'm going to go at it on my own because I got burned, or because, I'm uncertain of how people are moving and whether or not they are actually deserving of the title or of my investment. I think it is an amazing best practice to vet the people to see if they've actually delivered or achieved what they are coaching you on, or to see if you believe that you are aligned to who they are, to their business model, and to the work that they're going to continue to do. So if
Mhm.
you guys don't take anything else from this episode, vet the people that you are investing in, because it will make a huge difference in you actually getting a return on that investment. And good quality coaches want you to ask the questions. They want you to vet them. They want you to look at the receipts. They want you to go to their website and explain their program in detail. They want that because they want to work with people who are really going to show up, right, and make the investment in themselves, because that's why we do the work that we do. So
Mhm.
I appreciate that as our kind of final idea there. If you don't hear anything else, please vet the people that you're spending money with. And then this will be our last question. You've had a successful career in military, federal government, counseling, entrepreneurship, and real estate. And there must be some gems, some lessons that you've learned about reinvention and how someone can either make a pivot into their next chapter or start to rethink the way they see themselves as a federal employee or a corporate employee or fill in the blank. Give us a few of the gems that you've taken away just from your successful experience.
Okay, so I would say one of the first things that I had to really get in touch with was understanding my why, and understanding that I really had what it took to do all those things. And so I would say resiliency, or just being tenacious and never giving up, saying, I'm willing to do the work and I'm willing to get in the room. I'm willing to get in the room, whatever the room looks like. I do this little silly joke about you can be in the room and you can't afford the lobster that everybody's eating in the room. You got to eat tilapia. But the fact that you're actually in the room is where you still going to pick up what you need and the
Mm-hmm.
gems and everything that's happening in that room. And if you stay in that room long enough, one, you'll get the desire and the taste to eat the lobster, and two, you'll actually get the tools you need to put yourself in position where you can have the lobster. Hopefully that makes sense. And so that's one thing, is that always get in the room, no matter how uncomfortable you are, get in there and learn. So be a lifelong learner. So that is one thing that I say, how you navigate through a lot of this is be a lifelong learner. Another thing is that realizing that, for me, it was about my faith in understanding that I am who I am, which is I'm a child of God, and because He is creative and abundant, I am creative and abundant as my birthright. And so believing that about myself, that I could have anything that I go for. And also believing that, my why is I want to live out. I have a desire. I want to live out everything that God has put in me. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go for that. And so those are two of the things that I think, you could really lean into. And then being willing to make mistakes and still get up
Mm-hmm.
and try again tomorrow. Do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Try again. Be able to take the rejection as a way of someone saying, um, being able to reframe rejection. People are
We
rejecting you because they are not aligned with you or shouldn't be going with you on this journey, not because you're not good enough.
I think the reminder that you gave around making sure your faith is robust, your faith in your higher power, and then that translates to faith in yourself. If you are really plugged into what you believe your purpose is or your unique set of gifts. So I love that as a reminder for folks, as a gem, because sometimes we believe that those two things are separate, right? Entrepreneurship and faith practice are, to me, inextricably linked, because you have to honestly, sincerely be able to navigate rejection at a high level as an entrepreneur. And a lot of times when you're in corporate or when you're in government, the idea of navigating those rejections doesn't happen. So it's a muscle that has to be built. And it comes from the belief that the rejection means that you're just not the right person, right? It's not that I have a bad idea. It's not that there is no viability in the concept that I am building. It's that you're not the right person. You're not the right audience. And I have to continue to do the work to go find the right person, to go find the right audience. And that's the mission that we are on. So I'm excited for that as a reminder. And I'll take that as the gem that we'll leave our audience with. Is there anywhere that folks can find you that are looking for more information or that they may want to work with you? Tell us how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so how you can get in contact with me is, I have a YouTube channel, and my YouTube channel is, Federal Women in Wealth, and then I also have, you can contact me on LinkedIn, and, what I have going on right now is the Wealth Circle, which is a curated room for, women who want to understand more about real estate, and we also have guest experts that come in, and we have a deal room in there. So if women want to navigate through that, that is what we have going on right now. But I love to see you also inside of my school community, which is the Wealth Hub for Federal Women.
Wonderful. Daisy, thank you so much for helping to bring these gems to our audience and being our first federal employee to join us. We try to make sure we talk about authentic stories of career across sectors. So we appreciate you giving us your insight and sharing your time. For those of you who are listening to us now, we appreciate you for riding with us. And we hope that you continue to make your journey work for you. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Career Gems for the Journey podcast.